Good morning, Bitcoiners. This is Daniel with episode 64 of the Citadel Summer. And today I'm going to talk about our neighbors to the north, Canada, and how things are going there. If you look back to the beginning of the Citadel Summer series, one of the early episodes, I talked about what's going on in Canada right now with Alberta, and now Saskatchewan and BC, and how there's a move afoot for them to secede from Canada. I think Alberta is now calling it Alberta independence. And the funny thing is that, you know, I'm a big fan of Nolan Bauerle and his show, The Great Awakening. And really, right after Trump got elected in November, even before then, but it started to really pick up steam right after Trump got elected. He was calling for Alberta to secede from Canada. And he had a whole, he talked about, the act of separation and how that was set up when Quebec almost seceded. It was a very close vote, right? Quebec almost seceded years ago, and the acts of separation were set up. He said the divorce papers are written. And he laid out all of the logic for why Alberta would have a case for separating, transfer payments, lack of respect from the Laurentian elite, populism in Alberta. And it was a pretty compelling case. And he kind of convinced me back then, way back then, that that's not only likely to happen, but in a way it's inevitable, right? And I was joking around even back then. I asked him, I said, do you think Canada will last, right around New Year's, I think, do you think Canada will last a year? And at that time, even he wasn't saying, Canada's done by the end of the year. But it turns out, with the election of Mark Carney, remember, it was Trudeau back in November of last year. And then Trudeau had that slow resignation. I'm resigning, but he stayed on for a long time until the backroom deal was made for the biggest financial loser in history, Mark Carney, to take over Canada, and for the whole thing to be arranged that he would be the next prime minister. And that did happen. And when that happened, folks like Nolan and myself were even more convinced that Canada was going to break up. He actually has a show called The Breakup Canada, which you can watch on Rumble, on his Bitcoin on Rumble channel, with Dave Bradley and who's that other guy? Oh, I'm I'm having a hard time remembering. He's a really good Bitcoiner in Canada too. He's from Nova Scotia. What the hell is his name? I'll come up with it. Brad Mills. Sorry, Brad. Very handsome man. Nice beard. Brad Mills and Dave Bradley and Nolan Bauerle. Awesome trio for the Breakup Canada. Someone renamed it the All Out Podcast. I never got that, but I call it the Breakup Canada because it's really documenting what's happening to Canada, and it's playing out the scenario of the sovereign individual where the nation state is over. Bitcoin is putting a wedge between money and state, and the nation state in the information age has no future, and Canada is playing out in real time in Canada, which seems like a bad thing if you're a Canadian. And I love Canada. I love the Canadian people. A ton of my friends are from Canada. I know so many good Bitcoiners from Canada. The whole truckers strike just precipitated a movement in Canada where people just woke up and found Bitcoin. And there's some of the most hardcore Bitcoiners in the world are in Canada because they understand it, right? They know the use case for it from experience personally, right? It's not an academic, it's not an abstract thing for Canadians. It's really, really personal. They felt it. And it's not a bad thing what they're going through because they're going to be ahead of the curve. They're going through the fourth turning before everybody else, right? And it's going to be some short-term pain, especially for people who aren't Bitcoiners. But they're going to come out on the other side, I think, because it's Canada. The people there, they're propagandized more than any people in the world because they have to suffer with the U.S. propaganda and with the even more onerous Canadian propaganda. And they're still toughing it out, most of them, right? I mean, Carney did get in there, so it's not perfect, right? But they're waking up, right? Alberta, I don't think there's anything that can stop Alberta from leaving Canada. I really don't. It's a mainstream news topic, from the most fringe thing in the world, where even Nolan Bauerle, who came up with the idea, wasn't rating it as a high likelihood in the short term. I said from the very beginning that Alberta and Quebec would leave at the same time because they're like, they're the twins, right? They're the red and the blue twins in Canada. And in Canada, blue is like red in the United States. So blue is the conservative and red is the liberal, right? So they're the red and the blue twins. And I don't know, now they're calling it Wexit, and all of the Western provinces are considering leaving, or at least, Manitoba, maybe, Saskatchewan and Alberta for sure, and parts of BC definitely are looking, they're getting their divorce papers organized. Let's just put it that way, right? And if you know anything about Canada, you know that Alberta and Saskatchewan have a disproportionate impact on the economy of Canada. Alberta, because of oil, if nothing else, and Saskatchewan is the breadbasket of Canada, right? So, and they also have other industries that make a lot of money, and they have to pay. In Canada, they have transfer payments where they try to equalize. Everyone contributes to the economy. So each province will send money to the central government, and the central government will redistribute that to the provinces. We have a similar setup here in Vermont, locally, for towns. The more wealthy towns will contribute more toward education, and they all, contribute that to the state government, and then the state government will redistribute that money to make sure that each town can have, decent education. We have a similar thing, and people fucking hate it in Vermont too. The towns that have to pay more don't like it, right? It's trying to be fair, a little socialism thrown in the mix here. And Canada has the same thing. This socialism of, what is the communist thing? From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? But it's all rigged, because when Quebec was thinking about, divorcing Canada way back when, one of the sweetheart deals they got was for transfer payments, they wouldn't count hydroelectric power as part of the economy of Quebec. So their economy does not include that. Their transfer payment calculation doesn't include that part of their economy, and that's a huge part of their economy. The hydropower of Quebec is one of the biggest, most powerful, energy engines on the planet, right? And they don't count that toward their economy. So Alberta has a couple of things to be upset about, right? And it looks now like this is a mainstream story. This is, if you look at Canadian news, and if you go on YouTube and you look for the big stories in Canada that YouTubers who cover the Canadian news are into, that they're covering right now, Wexit, this exit from Canada of the Western provinces, is probably one of the top stories. And there's a lot of stories to tell in Canada right now. There's a housing crisis, there's an immigration crisis, there's a border crisis, with the United States, right? It turns out that, the Mexican drug cartels that were smuggling fentanyl into the U.S., saw the writing on the wall, and they set up shop in Canada, right? So now Canada is the biggest fentanyl producer and smuggler into the United States, because they saw that 4,000-mile long undefended border and said, hey, the heat's on down in Mexico, especially now where Trump's going to come back in. Let's move shop. Or actually when Trump was there 4 years ago, that's when this whole thing was precipitated, right? Let's move shop up north, right? And let's set up shop there, and we'll start smuggling fentanyl into the United States from there. So that's a big deal for the current administration, and that's why the border, it's not being militarized, really. I wouldn't call it that yet, but it's definitely being much more monitored. And Canada is spending a lot more money on their side of the border simply because of the pressure that the Trump administration has put on Canada. And I really think all bets are off. I really think all bets are off with Canada. We're in interesting times. In the United States, the Federal Reserve is under attack. Who would have thought that the IRS is under attack from the Trump administration? It's not out of the realm of possibility that next year we won't have a Federal Reserve. Next year we won't have an IRS in the United States. It's not, there's a non-zero probability, and I'd say it's a pretty good probability, maybe not 50-50 yet, but pretty darn good, that Canada will no longer exist as we know it today, that Mark Carney will be the last Prime Minister of Canada, and that at least Alberta, if not Alberta and Saskatchewan, and who knows what Quebec is going to do, right? When the chips start falling, will have exited from the Canadian Federation and will be sovereign political entities of their own, or will petition the United States to join the United States. It's crazy, isn't it? Go back to that episode. I'll see if I can link to it in the at the end of this video. I'll see if I can link to that video, because that was one of the, like I said, it was one of the first episodes of Citadel Summer. I talked about Canada, and here we are toward the end. This is the last week. This is the last Monday of the series, right? And the momentum has only gotten greater. And if you guys don't see all the comments that I get, because I post these videos in a couple of different ways, but the comments were some people were ridiculing me about the breakup of Canada. And these are based people. These are Bitcoiners that watch my videos, right? Well, you Bitcoiners that gave me a hard time about my hot take on Canada 2 months ago, not even that long ago. It's day 64 here, right? 2 months ago. I want you to comment here and tell me what you think about the possibility of the breakup of Canada today, at the end of August in 2025. And if your mind has changed, and if you see that this is now not a fringe topic at all, but a mainstream topic in Canada. And it's Bitcoiners that are driving it, Dave Bradley's a huge player in the Alberta independence movement. He's a huge player. The whole Nova Scotia thing, where I follow him on X now, but I can't remember his name. Everly, is that his name? The Afghanistan vet who walked in, not even the woods. He forced his way into this scrubby area next to a park ranger station, came out and got fined $28,000 for walking in the woods in Nova Scotia, right? And his bill Bitcoiners offered to cover that bill for him, right? So Bitcoin there's a Bitcoin angle in that story too. And that's a big story in Canada. That's a huge story. This whole lockdown in Nova Scotia, where people in the summertime in Nova Scotia can't go into the woods. And then, this is the hypocrisy of the fiat system, there's homeless encampments in the woods where they still are doing what they always did. If they're so worried about fire in the woods, why would they let the homeless continue to stay there, right? It's just the same kind of hypocrisy that we saw during the last round of lockdowns in 2020, 2021. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of bullshit hypocrisy that we saw before, They don't have a leg to stand on. And that's why the fiat system is coming apart at the seams. And that's why, in line with the sovereign individual, the nation state, is coming to an end. And Canada is the first one through the gate, right? They're the ones that's going to fall apart first. But the cool thing for all you Canadians, and I know I have people who watch from Canada, the great thing for you is that you're going to come out on the other side. You already have a lot of Bitcoiners in Canada, right? You have a lot of, believe it or not, you have a lot of based people. You have a lot of, brain damaged, stupid, baby boomers that are in control right now. But you have a lot of based people. You can come out on the other side, and shit is bad enough now that, alternatives are going to be welcome. It's going to be a fun ride. We'll see how it plays out. But, Danielle Smith and the Alberta independence people, led really by Bitcoiner Dave Bradley, they're making this thing happen. It's exciting. It's exciting. And we'll see how it plays out. It's going to play out after the Citadel summer is over, but it was pretty fun watching it all summer long. I'll tell you that much. It was pretty fun watching it all summer long. It's a gray day here at the lake. It's not that bad, actually. It's kind of misty. We had a huge downpour. I wasn't sure I was going to get out here this morning. I have my raincoat on. My wife told me, she said, Dan, you're not going out this morning, right? Because we heard thunder and shit like that. And I said, let's just play it by ear. And sure enough, here it is. I got my video under my belt, so I haven't missed a day. Day 64, Citadel Summer. If you've made it this far, like, subscribe. I'll have more things on this channel. The Citadel Summer's coming to an end. I actually posted a video yesterday afternoon. I have a new thing that I'm going to do. That was just a preview. I'm not sure the form it's going to take, but it's going to be similar to this, where it's going to be, I used the story by Alex Ramosi about making pots, and it's going to be the same thing. And I think I'm going to have live streams on that. The new project is going to include live streams, and it's going to include a few other things. I sent a little taste of it yesterday, so if you look at that video, you can see it. But that's what it's going to be. Moving forward, I think I'll have a couple of things, not just that, but some other things. It won't be every day thing moving forward, but it will be frequently enough that you'll see good content, or at least content. I'll let you judge the value of it for yourselves. If you want to come back, you can. But I'll keep posting. It's not going to be a daily video out here at the lake. I will come out here again sometimes, I'm sure, but not every day. So like, subscribe. If you made it this far, give me a comment. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. We only have, we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days left. So I have to think of a good topic for tomorrow. We'll see. It usually comes to me either right before I go to sleep or right when I wake up. So we'll see what tomorrow's going to be. If you have any suggestions, put a comment in there. You can let me know what you want me to talk about. Anyway, I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace.